I'm heading up towards Crystal Palace. There's an incline because there's an elevated plateau that runs from Upper Norwood, the Beulah Heights, to Crystal Palace. The tower you can see in front of me is the transmitter tower at Crystal Palace that used to be used by the BBC. I'm not sure what it's used for now. There's another one at the other end of the plateau which used to be used by ITV. I'm coming up here to a road closure, and one of the wonderful things about cycling is you can quite simply dismount and navigate your way around most obstacles. As I continued on my cycle, I noticed a building. You can see it to the right, a church. And I noticed some wooden buttresses. So I stopped to investigate. And I found it a very pleasing building. Seems to be in Gothic style, with turrets and pointed arched windows. And I wondered whether it was disused, because the surroundings seemed a little bit overgrown. Obviously, something's going on there. It's a red brick building, and I'm guessing that it's not that old. You probably can't see in the video, but the windows are stained glass. Going round to the back, there seems to be there's another building there. Looks as if it might be from the same age, I don't know. It's a very pleasing design to my eyes. The proportions. I like that little circular building. Again, stained glass. Lovely, to my mind. I wonder now whether that other building to the side was slightly newer. I don't know. You'll notice around the base there that there seems to be quite some deterioration in the brickwork. I don't know about these things. I was wondering, is it just the pressure? But as again, being red brick, I don't think it could be that old. Seems to be kind of weathering or crumbling. And I wonder why it would be just at the bottom there. The gardens, again, seem a bit unkempt, and I think there was somebody, it almost seemed as if it was an allotment at the far end there. I looked up online, and it turns out that there's subsidence, and that's what's going on. It says online that Phase 1 works to secure the structure have been completed. Now this bit I just love. The door. I assume it's original. Look at that. I was going to say the ceiling, I don't know if you call it that. It would seem then from the notes on the door that the church is still in use. Well, not at this very moment. And there's a handwritten note from the vicar. Refugees welcome. Meditation. And something else which I can't make out. The church is St. John the Evangelist. And here are some pictures from Wikipedia of the inside. It's a Gothic revival building, Grade 2 listed, red brick, and was built in 1870, so it's not that old. Old enough. But obviously, the subsidence is an issue. I noticed a number of lovely houses around this area. Not so much these that you can see, though I'm not criticising them. I was very lucky with the weather. It's a fine spring day. Look at that house on the right. I live in a small flat, so I'm a little bit envious, perhaps. Well, not really, but I admire such things. I remember this square from many, many years ago. And again, the houses. So I take a detour around the square, just for a quick look. And also because I've been gently cycling uphill for some time, so it gives my legs a bit of a rest. Avoid that gentleman. And that house just to the right, can you see? With the windows. Wonderful. So I'm back on my way, and now I'm heading up, and I'm turning off just to have a look at the lower level, Crystal Palace Station. There were two stations. This one is still in use. The upper level station was discontinued its use some time ago. The upper level station had a tunnel through to the main entrance of the Crystal Palace. Apparently the tunnel is still there, with a tiled or marbled, tiled I believe, vaulted ceiling, which occasionally is opened. In the distance there to the right you can see the floodlights from the National Sports Centre. I don't know when that was built, but obviously not all that long ago. And there's the tower again. There's also an Olympic-sized swimming pool, which I've been to in my youth. I use a smaller pool that's much nearer now. Crystal Palace Park is on the right behind those railings. And there's some of the old buildings on the outskirts that are left standing still. As you can see there in the distance is the other tower at Beulah Heights, which was used by ITV. The BBC tower, the one at Crystal Palace, was built in 1956, and that one there, 1962. Coming up to Crystal Palace High Street, and the parade is to the right, which is where I'm going to go. On the left we've just passed a pub which had music for many years, and ahead, slightly to the right, is another pub which I've been to. And both of those are very pleasing buildings, to my mind anyway. This is heading along the parade towards the far end where the tower is. And you can see it's quite a wide, flat road. If you watch this gentleman that's just overtaken me on the bike, I wondered, shall I catch up with him? But I thought, I don't think so. Keeping my distance. See the black car that's just to the right of him? These things happen. The black car is indicating that the cyclist's on the inside, so he can't see. And I don't know if the car's seen him, because the car just pulls in and drives him off the road with no damage, thankfully. Sometimes, I've been cycling for many, many years, and I also drive. Sometimes it's just difficult to see cyclists. I'm not making any excuses, but it just is. So as a cyclist, you have to do 100% of the work, is my experience. Either the drivers aren't bothered and not looking, or they are reasonably looking, but they just don't see you. So people opening car doors, all sorts of things. You have to be 100% on it, really. Which does take some of the pleasure out, but I think that's the way it is. You want to stay safe. So I dismount and walk through the upper area of the park. I don't know if this is where the palace was. I think the actual building, because this seems wide and flat, but I think it might be where the shrubs are, or might have been where the shrubs are. You might be able to figure out. I put some photographs later. Was it here, or was it down on that paved area you saw just a minute ago? Anyway, seeing as I've got a telephoto lens capability, I thought I'd zoom in and take a look at the top of the transmitter. I have no idea what those things are, but maybe you do. I have no idea what that is either. Maybe it holds some kind of posters or signs or something. Looks a bit out of place there on its own. I'm swooping around, and that's the view to the southeast of Crystal Palace. So you can see we are quite elevated. Later on I'll show you a view from the other side, which looks in towards central London. I'm suspecting where all these bushes are is where the palace was, but I could be wrong. You can see the surviving wall and statues and those kind of pedestals. And when you see the photographs later, you can see that those pedestals on the wall and the statue are there. You can see them in relation to the actual palace. Heading down to the lower level and past the kind of mock Egyptian lion. When I say mock, I'm not decrying it in any way. And along to the end, there's a staircase leading somewhere. I don't know if we'll be able to see that in the photographs later, because it is right at one end. And on either side of the staircase are two more lions. One of them you can't see. Well, neither so clearly, because it's dark. Heading back past the other two lions. Are they sphinxes? I'm not sure. Back past the fellow on the right, and then down the wide staircase. Nice thing about a bike, of course, you can just hoist it up on your shoulder and walk with it. Very grand. It must have been very splendid in its day. Slight detour here, just to have a look at the state condition of what's left. And you can see that it's crumbling. The original Crystal Palace was in Hyde Park in London for the Great Exhibition, and it was only there, unbelievable really, for 6 months. That was the plan. There are those pedestals which you can see in the photographs later. So in Hyde Park it was 1851 and cost the equivalent of £16.5 million. Then it was dismantled and moved here to Crystal Palace. The complete structure was two times the size of the London Dome. So massive. The move, apparently, cost the equivalent of £133 million. That was from something like 1952 to 1954 that it was dismantled and moved. That was in 1854. And by the 1890s, the number of visitors had dropped and the building was getting into a state of disrepair. You can imagine maintaining something like that. Imagine if you had any leaks in the roof, trying to find where they are and fix them. There you can see those pedestals. That's a sad picture of its fate, which was in 1936, the fire. And that's what was left. That tall structure on the left is a water tower. There was one on the other side. I think they remained, but then they dismantled them. Heading off here through the park. And I think there was either a natural, or maybe it was built, a natural kind of amphitheatre in the park. And looking to see on the left there the extent of it. I mean, I've come quite a long way and it's still stuff going on. And then that natural amphitheatre was turned into, I think, the Crystal Palace Bowl. So, which you'll see in a moment, where they'd have concerts. There it is. And people would sit on the lawn, and there's a kind of a pond or a lake. And the orchestra or the band would be on the stand there, covered by that slanting roof. And as you can see, everything's a bit rusty. Maybe it was like that originally, I don't know. I don't think that's the original colour. So a little bit run down, maybe. In 1854, when the palace was erected at Crystal Palace, also they made a kind of dinosaur lake. And I believe these are the original dinosaurs as they imagined they were back then. So back to the history. By the visitors had dropped 1890s, and then the whole thing sort of slipped into a state of disrepair. And in 1911, it was bankrupt. By 1920, Sir Henry Buckland restored the building, and it started to make a small profit. He was very keen on it, and didn't want to see it kind of waste away. So apparently it started to make a small profit, and then, sadly, in 1936, the fire was the end of it. This is still part of the park, lovely as you can see. I'm heading now to the far end, which will be slightly beyond that BBC tower. And then I'm going to go up and round and back along Crystal Palace Parade. So here I am heading back, and you can see the tower on the left. Well, you can't. It was. I've edited it out. And right in front you can see the other tower. So I'm turning right here. The road on the left was the road I came up originally. And now I'm walking along the pavement past Lorenzo's. Got to stop and take a little look because me and my baby used to visit here many years ago. And this is one of the side streets, and you can see in the distance London, central London. You can see the Shard there straight ahead, and what they call the mobile phone building, I don't know its proper name. Just towards the left you can see St Paul's Cathedral just going out of view, and various other landmarks in London City. Heading home now, and just going along the Beulah Heights, up and norward, and there's the ITV, as was, tower on the left. Quite a plateau this, so it's quite flat, but as I turn left and head down South Norwood Hill, yeah, I get to enjoy not having to pedal so much. Off into the distance on the horizon then is probably southeast London into Kent. I'm going to turn right here. On the left, in a while, is Crystal Palace Football Club. You can probably see the floodlights. There they are. This heads down to Thornton Heath, near where I used to go to school. And as I turn left, heading towards Croydon, slight hill over the railway, down the other side, and then pretty much flat all the way home. And the tower you're about to see in the distance there is near where I live.